Ta-da! All right. Welcome everybody to another edition of Learn Photography with Duck. As always, I am your host, Duck, and we have episode 5. I don't know if you guys saw, I posted on Facebook. Let me pull this up real quick. I posted on Facebook this image. All right, let me go ahead and share my screen. Share. Okay, there we go. Uh, I I shared this image on Facebook, and I mentioned there that this is what we're going to be talking about. Um, it's well, you recognize this photo. I've been kind of reusing it the past couple of sessions just because might as well maximize the use that we can out of our images. And as you can see, it kind of has a painterly feel to this. And I mentioned last week that, I would delve into how to create a kind of like oil painting feel to an image. So that way, if you want to create your, utilize your creative energy, and last week we talked about kind of creating using AI to create a coloring page out of your images. Today, we're just going to go a little bit more straightforward into utilizing some built-in Photoshop tools and how we can create something that's a little bit more artistic. Um, so that's what we're going to do today. And I hope you guys are all up for it. Before we do that, let me go back to this. I do want to mention that tomorrow night, Joe McNally is going to be paying a visit to doing a workshop here in Bridgeport at what starting at 6 o'clock. I think 6 o'clock. It's meet and greet, and then the session starts at 7. It's being hosted by our local ASMP group, which is the American Society of Media Photographers. So if you look up ASMP CT and go to the events page, you will be able to register for this workshop. If you have a, if you want to, if you're, I can talk. If you are interested in going and you are having a hard time finding the link, just shoot me a text. I will send you the link. I have it somewhere. I don't have it handy right now. Otherwise, I'd probably throw it in the chat. But anyway, so that's tomorrow. Uh, and if you are familiar with Joe McNally's work, he is phenomenal commercial photographer, fashion photographer, people photographer. He just amazing with lighting. If you ever get a chance to see some of his tutorials on YouTube, it's a master class in every video session that he does. Anyway, so what we're going to do today is we're going to utilize our images, okay, and create something artistic and something that kind of looks like a painting utilizing Photoshop and what is called an art history brush. Okay, so an art history brush, it's a very specialized brush where it utilizes a kind of like you might say a snapshot of your image, and it pulls the information from that snapshot, and through the use of brushes, the brushes kind of create a special effect that mimics oil painting. So there's really not a lot of work as far as knowing how to paint, because you're not really painting in the details. You're letting the software do the color selection and utilizing the underlying photo, you're just using your creativity to kind of play around with brush strokes and texture and how you want to present it. And I'll show you what I mean when we get into it. All right, so let me switch this over. Like I said, you probably recognize this image that I did. This is the Booth Memorial um, Park over in Stratford. It's they got a little clock tower. It's one of their historic preserved buildings on their property. And if you ever get a chance to go to Booth Memorial Park, it's a small park. It's very quaint. They actually do a lot of activities throughout the year. I've shared photos that Bill and I had gone there, for a car show in the past. They've done all kinds of events, a lot of family events. So if you ever get a chance, look them up, get their schedule. They have a rose garden. If you like photographing flowers, by all means, check it out. But anyway, this is the image that we are going to manipulate. So what I've done is I've done all the editing that I want within Lightroom and Photoshop. And now what I want to do is I just want to convert it to an oil painting. So we're going to go ahead and I'm going to right click and we're going to export this. Oh, no, I'm sorry. We're going to edit this in Photoshop. So edit in Adobe Photoshop. Now, because this is a TIFF file, it's going to ask me if I want to edit the original. Okay, so my original has all my editing layers that were used to create this image. I've gone over how to do this in the past. I can edit a copy. So basically what it's going to do is it's going to create a duplicate of this file and open it separately. So that way I can preserve this file and all its layers. It opens up a copy and I can then manipulate that. Well, I don't really need all those layers. I just need the finished piece. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to edit a copy with Lightroom adjustments. And we're going to go ahead and say edit. Okay. And it's going to open it up. All right. And what I want you to notice is that I don't have, oops. I don't have all those layers. Okay, so here, just to show you what I mean, let's go back to Lightroom. I'm going to go ahead and edit in Photoshop, but I'm going to do the original. I don't want to create a copy. I'm going to do the original. The original, and of course, the copy preserves all the layers. So I'm just going to show you what I mean. So I'm going to edit in, and it's going to open it up, and you can see all my layers that created this image are here. All right. And in the other one, all my layers are gone. It's basically opened up a flattened image. Okay. So that's the difference between the two. I'm going to go ahead and close this. I don't want to save it. All right. All right. So now what I want to do is I want to create a artistic rendition kind of resembling oil painting. All right. And for that, we are going to use a tool. All right. If you go to your toolbar, actually, let me do this. Come on. There's your brush tool. And if you click and hold and hover, you're going to see that there are a bunch of different selections. Mixer brush, history brush, and the one that we want is the art history brush tool. Okay, the art history. So the art history is, well, let me first explain what the history brush. When you create a snapshot of your image, or even when it first opens up, all right, there is a particular state that the software recognizes that this is your image. Okay. As you do things, it keeps track of every step that you make, creating, in essence, a history. If you cut and paste, if you enlarge, reduce, add curves adjustments, whatever, it keeps a history of that. Okay. When you use the history brush tool, it defaults back to a previous state that you select. All right. And then you can paint in with that history brush. All right. It's an old technique. It's been around for like forever. And I've seen it used very uniquely. Like I have a friend of mine that used the history brush tool to actually do dodging and burning. He's never explained how he does it. I kind of think I know how he does it, but anyway, um, so that's what the history brush does. It utilizes a past version of your image, and then you're able to paint it in. The art history brush takes it a step further and applies a certain amount of texture and formatting to the brushes that allows you to do something that's a little bit more creative, but it still refers back to a previous state of your image. Okay. And I'll show you what I mean by that. Okay. So,
Can you hear me?
yes.
What is the B and the Y over in those in that four selections? Two of them are B and two of them are Y.
Oh, those are the shortcut keys.
Okay.
All right. So, yeah. So if you hover over any of these, all right. So for example, here's the remove tool. If you see, the letter J is the shortcut key to those. All right. And you notice that they all share the same J. All right. So now what I can do is, if I'm like, for example, if I'm in the pick tool, all I got to do is hit the J key. Let me show you what I mean. I hit the J key and it automatically switches to that tool right there, the remove tool. All right. And if I press the Alt J, or I'm sorry, it's a Alt J command. I can't remember. Trying to, oh, Shift J, it's going to toggle between all of those that share that same shortcut. Okay.
Thank you.
So for example, the brush tool has the B. So if I press B, it'll go to the brush tool. And then if I hit Shift B, it's just going to toggle through the brushes. All right. And the art brush was what? Y. Okay. So if I press Y, it goes to my, and then Shift Y goes between history and art history, is because there's only two. Okay. So shortcut keys, it's a quick way of getting around the toolbar. Just as with anything else, once you start using the shortcut keys, it kind of facilitates. And there are times where I've been using the shortcut key so much that I forget how to do it any other way. It's like, where is it in the menu? I haven't used it in decades. I just know it by the, oh, yeah, see, and I inadvertently made two duplicates. Okay. All right. So now I have the art brush tool, art history brush tool. And if you notice, when I hover over my image, it gives me a don't, a don't symbol, the universal don't symbol, or in this case, you can't do it symbol. Okay. And that's because the art history brush has certain limitations. And the first limitation you need to be aware of is that it cannot work on anything other than an 8-bit image. Okay. So if we go to image mode, you're going to see that I am in image mode. I am in 16-bit mode. Okay. Because this is coming from that TIFF file that I edited, which is coming from my raw, and my raw image opens up in Photoshop as 16 bits. Okay. So the first thing we need to do is we need to go to mode and change it from 16-bit to 8-bit. Okay. And now when I click on the art brush, okay. Oh, did I do it? Image mode 8-bit. Yeah. Okay. Actually, you know what I did? Let me just revert. Okay. Image mode 8-bit. Okay. The other thing we're going to need is we're going to need the window. We go to window, history. All right. And if you notice in this history, I've already done a bunch of things. All right. So that layer copy kind of screwed me up. So I'm going to tell you what I'm going to do just so we don't confuse you. I'm going to close this and we're going to do it again. All right. Control E, edit with a copy, edit. There we go. Okay. So now we go image mode 8-bit. Okay. And then we go to the art history, brushes. Oh, it's not doing anything. Okay. So now it says could not use the art history brush because the current bit depth does not match that of the history state. Okay. So what does that mean? It does not match the history state. Well, this is where it can get a little bit confusing. Okay. Because the original history starts off with the image being at 16-bit. All right, 16-bit. So let's go. All right, I don't see my history, so we're going to go to window, scroll down till we say history, and we're going to click on that, and it's going to open up our history panel. All right, our history panel. And now we're going to see that we have our initial image when it was first opened, okay, which is my TIFF file. All right. The first step, which was to open it, and then the second step that we did to it was we converted it to 8-bit channel. Okay. And you see that little icon of the history brush. It is right next to the image.tiff. Okay. So that means it is referencing the original 16-bit image. All right. And we've already established the art history brush cannot work on a 16-bit image. Okay. So what we need to do is we need to change the reference. So the way we change the reference is we will go, instead of having the original image selected, we're going to go where it says 8-bit, all right, 8-bit channel, and we're going to select that. Okay. So now we are telling Photoshop that we are going to reference that 8-bit channel. Make sense? Did I lose anybody on that one? All right, because that one can get a little confusing, especially when you try to do stuff and Photoshop's going to give you that, oh, I can't do anything. Okay. All right. So what I'm going to do is before we get into any specialty brushes, I'm just going to go ahead and select a round brush. Okay. Just a normal round brush. All right. And then we are in the art history brush. And of course, we have our menu at the top, our context menu. Okay. Our mode is in normal. That's where we want to be. Okay. And you notice we don't have a lot of different options. We just have dark and light and just, a few others. The opacity, that's, of course, the opacity of your brush. The style, we'll get into that in a minute. The area and the tolerance. And of course, the angle of your brush, which we don't need to worry about. The first one we're going to do is style. Okay. And we have some selections: tight, short, medium, and long, loose, medium, loose, long, and tight curl, long, and loose curl long. Okay. Now, these are a little bit cryptic as to, why does that keep popping up? Little cryptic as to what they do. All right. So let's just go down the line. I'm going to select tight, short. The area is the area that you are selecting from. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to start off with an area of 20 pixels. Okay. Because this is a fairly large image. This image is almost 6,000 pixels across. So an area of 20 pixels selection. So where the cursor is, all right, it's going to look at a 20 pixel square area, and it's going to select the color from that area, and it's going to apply it to the entire brush. Okay. All right. So this one is tight, short. Okay. So now as I go across, you can see that it's keeping the brush in a fairly controlled area. All right. But all I got to do is just click, and it just keeps moving around in a very, very small area, selecting the color underneath it. Okay. And just picking the color from that area. Okay. That's the tight, short. All right. Actually, you know what? All right. So now, instead of using my undo, I have my history here. All right. So every time I touched the canvas with my pen, it generated a new history. Every time I touched it, it created one. So now if I want to go back, all I have to do is click on that first one, not here on the side, but on the actual image or on the actual line, and it returns me back to that state. So now if I click on the next one, it shows me what each time I did something to the canvas, all right, it brings me back in. All right, so this is a way of undoing rather than Control Z. Okay. And I don't think we've ever talked about the history panel in the past. Simply because, yeah.
One of the things, I don't know, when I was first teaching myself Photoshop and would make mistakes, my technique would be to go back to what you've got there, and I just go up to the top brush that and just delete the history, and it takes out everything down and below it.
Yep. Yep, you
You know,
can. You can, but you really don't have to, because now I'm just going to make a change. I'm going to go from tight short to tight long. Okay, I'm going to make my brush just a little bit smaller so you can see this. So I made a change. I went from tight short to tight long, and now I'm going to go here, and you notice that it reset everything. It got rid of everything previously, and now it's starting the count again from where I went back to. All right, so it's basically time travel, you might say. I'm going back to a previous state, and now I move forward along that timeline. It's creating an alternate timeline and deleted the original timeline. Does that make sense? Okay, so now moving forward, every time I do something, it's just going to add to that history. All right, but what I want you to notice is that that tight long is creating a long chain of that brush. Okay, and every time it creates a new chain, all right, it's sampling a new color from underneath. All right, not from what I'm doing, but from the original 8-bit channel image. Okay, it's going to sample the colors underneath there, and it's going to give me a little bit of a variety. Okay, now you might say, well, this isn't very interesting, and I'll agree, because right now we're just using a plain simple round brush. There's really nothing to this brush with any interest. All right, but I'm just going through the different parts here. Okay, so now I can go back, hit that 8-bit channel. I'm going to reset my canvas, and we're going to go tight curl long. All right, and you notice that it creates these. Actually, let me see if I can. I'll make a really smaller brush. All right, and it's making kind of like this loop. All right, and tight curl long, and it looks like my cursor is off a bit. I'm going to need to reset that if I can. Okay, it's still off, isn't it? Yeah.
So, Duck, while you're in this mode, you said something earlier about percentages. So, can you make this going with this, but make it so it's more transparent? Was that what that was? A transparency? That's
Oh,
what it was trying
so
to say?
the opacity, yeah. So we can do,
Yeah, yeah.
all right, so let's go back here. The opacity, I'm going to make it really, really low, and you can see that the dabs are very kind of opaque. They're very soft along the edges. All right, there you go. See how you can still see some of it? But like anything with opacity, the more you go over it, it's a multiplication of that opacity. It's just gonna eventually clear up and hide the image. Okay, you get that?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right, so I'm gonna bring the opacity back up. Let's go back, reset things, and we'll do the long loose curl, and you'll see that this one does something completely different. All right, let's see. Ooh, look at that. So see how the brush kind of curls? All right. So that's what it does. So it kind of generates a random pattern based on the initial shape of your brush. So in this case, we got a round brush. Okay. All right. Oops. No, no, no. I don't. I Give me a second. I have to reset this because my brush, I mean my cursor's not working properly for some reason. So edit in Photoshop, edit. Okay. All right. Gonna launch. One of the side effects of using a pen tablet is every once in a while it glitches. All right. Let's see if I got it. Okay. All right. So again, first thing we do, we go image mode 8-bit. Okay. Then to use the art history, we have to make sure that it points to that 8-bit channel. So click on that little square next to the 8-bit channel. Okay. And now we're good to go. All right. So the last one I want to talk about is this one in the middle. Okay. Let me dab. All right. So we did tight and loose, short and long, straight and curls. Okay. The last one is dab. This is the one that I like to use because it doesn't make the brush do anything crazy. All right. So let me just enlarge this. Okay. Wherever I dab, all right, that's where it's going to go. Okay. But as you can see, as long as I stay there, it's just going to keep sampling, all right, within that 20 pixel area. All right. And just keep rotating through until I let go. Okay. Now, obviously, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be just going over the entire image. And as we travel along, you can see all it's doing is it's utilizing the shape of our brush to fill our canvas, or in this case, to alter our canvas with dabs of color selected from underneath. All right. Now, this unfortunately is a little bit of a destructive process. And me personally, I don't want to be all that destructive. All right. So there are a couple of things that I like to do to kind of prepare my canvas in a way for doing something on an artistic level. Okay. So let's go back to our original 8-bit. Okay. Because we have this selected, as you saw, I can go back and undo anything I do to this image and bring and reinstate it to my original 8-bit state. Okay. But we can also do a couple other things. I can place, for example, a solid color adjustment layer, all right, over this to kind of mimic a blank canvas. All right. And because we are still on that 8-bit channel, see our art history brush is selected on the 8-bit. Now, oh, I can't. Why? Because I forgot, I made a rookie mistake. Okay. The color fill tool is a adjustment layer. I have to rasterize it. So it rasterized it. Actually, let me go back. Okay. I don't want to rasterize it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a blank layer above that. Okay. And now as I paint over it, okay, you notice that it's going to utilize my original image, okay, and it's going to sample my original image to create these dabs, all right, because it's referencing this 8-bit channel. So I can put any other layer in there, it's still going to reference. All right, so in essence, what it's doing is it's referencing this layer, even though I have other stuff above it. Make sense? Okay. Well, the nice thing about that is now I can go ahead and if I wanted to, I can change the color of my background to match whatever mood I want with my image. Okay. If I want, I can even apply a texture. All right. And we'll get into the textures in a little bit. I don't want to obfuscate things too much. Okay. All right. But we can do all kinds of things. All right. Including adding, uh, curves adjustments and other adjustments. Okay. But anyway, as you see, using a round brush is not very interesting. Okay, it's not very interesting simply because there's really no texture. Okay, and you notice that all of the dabs that I'm creating, they're all the same size. So I'm not getting any kind of detail from the underlying structure, the underlying image. All right. So how can we fix that? Well, if we change the size of our brush, so right now it's about 400 pixels. If we reduce it down to, let's say, half the size, about 200 pixels, it's going to make smaller dabs. All right. And what it's going to do is it's now going to tighten up that the texture that's being revealed. Okay. So the size of the brush kind of determines how much of that underlying detail we get to bring back. All right, so that's at 200. Let's make our brush size here. We'll do it here. We'll make it, we'll go extreme. We'll go to 50. Okay. And now as I hover over this, you can see that as I paint more and more, we're starting to see the shape of that building come forward, right? We're seeing that building. Now it's starting to look like our image, okay? And if I go even smaller, all right, if I go to like 12, I can really start bringing in some of that detail, like in the doors, maybe in the balcony here. All right. And all I'm doing is I'm scrubbing. I'm scrubbing. All right. Let me zoom in so you can see. All right. I'm just scrubbing across. All right. I'm not following any particular pattern. All right. I'm just scribbling. All right. And everywhere I scribble, it's laying down these smaller dots and intermixing it with those larger dots. All right, so the smaller dots are giving us our detail. All right. Again, not very interesting because we're using round brush. Round brush is probably one of the most boring brushes there is out there. Okay. But I just want you to get familiar with the process, what is going on with the software in the background. Okay. So the size of your brush is going to determine the amount of detail you're able to pull through from the underlying image. Make sense? Okay. All right. Let's blow it out. So now we can see that, yeah, it's interesting, but not all that interesting because there's no texture. There's no texture. Okay. All right. So now I can go back to that beginning history, but now what's going to happen is I lose anything that I do with texture, with background color. I don't want to do all that. Okay, so let's bring this back. Okay, but at this point, because I have isolated my original image, okay, from my painting layer, all I got to do is just delete that layer, create a new blank layer, all right, and I'm back to the beginning. Okay, make sense? All right, so how can we get this to look a little bit more interesting? Well, for that, we need to have some brushes with texture. Okay, and I actually found some really nice brushes made by Texture Labs. If you're not familiar with Texture Labs, they do a lot of like very artsy Photoshop videos. Um, you name it, they probably have a video for it. How to get a grunge look, how to do a pixelated look, how to create burnt charred look, how to create halftone look. They they have a tutorial for it. So it's Texture Labs. But if you look up Texture Labs, if you actually here, let me just go ahead and do this. Where is it? Come on. There we go. New Texture Labs Art History Brushes. Okay. Art History Brush Photoshop Tutorial texturelabs.org. Okay. Just click on that. It's a free brush set that they give away. All right. Along with a YouTube video on how to use it. All right. So this is my plug to Texture Labs. And you can just download the brushes to your computer and then just open up the file and then click and drag it to your brushes and it'll automatically load it up. Okay. All right. I think you guys know how to do that, right? If you don't, just go to your brush list. Okay. So you go to your brushes. Let's see. I don't have the download, but basically you just go from your downloads. You find your. Let's see. Actually, here we go. I have them. I have them here. The Adobe Assets. Where's my brushes? Okay. And Texture Labs oil paint. All right. Texture Lab oil paint. All right. All you're going to do is just click and drag it over to your brushes panel, and it'll automatically load it up. Okay. And you will have these 5 brushes. All right. Number 1, large. Number 2, middle. Number 3, medium. Number 4, small. And number 5, fine. Okay. Now, these are pre-designed brushes. Okay. And the nice thing about these brushes is that you just drop them in and you can start using them right away. Okay. You don't have to worry about configuring your brushes or making art brushes. Okay. So here's how that works. All right. I'm going to go ahead and select a lighter color here, just so we have a color background. Um, Personally, I like working off of a blank canvas rather than directly on, my source image, just because I'm able to see the progression, and I can kind of control how the image is going forward as I see it appearing on a blank canvas. Okay, so this is how we do it. So I'm going to click on the large brush. Okay, and you can see that it's a fairly good sized brush. And what I'm just going to do, I have it in dab. The color area, I think even that, yep, they have that already preset for you. So you just click on the brush and then just start filling in your canvas. All right. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to leave a little bit of an edge. All right. As if I'm working in the middle of my canvas. Okay. Now, if we look at this, let me zoom in. Oh, look at all that texture. All right. Now it's starting to look like oil brushes. All right. And what it's doing is each one of these dabs is sampling a color from underneath. The other thing you're going to notice how that brush changes angle, changes width. Okay. Sometimes it's skinny, sometimes it's fat, sometimes it's pointed to the left, sometimes it's pointed to the right. All of these are pre-built into that brush. Okay. So it literally takes all the work out of it for you. Okay. Now, once I have my canvas pretty much all covered the way I want, okay, I'm going to go to the next brush, which is, let's see, noodles. Yeah, okay, we can try that one, see what it does. All right. Noodle, as soon as I click on that, you're going to notice that it went from dab to tight short. All right, tight short. And if you remember, that tight short kind of makes these loops. Okay, these loops. And you're going to notice that as it does this, because it's a smaller brush, we're starting to pull in some of that detail. All right. And you notice that it's traveling out along from that brush outward in these like noodles. All right. And these noodles kind of just look like they're following the contour stuff. They're really not, but it just kind of looks like it. Actually, I think it's doing some edge detection. Okay, which is kind of neat. All right, so now I can say, okay, well, I want to bring a little bit of detail not just in the building because, it's gonna, look a little weird. I want to pull some of the detail from the trees and bushes around it. Okay. Because again, I'm trying to replicate what it would look like if I was doing an actual painting. All right. And if I were actually doing a painting, I won't be playing around with one big fat brush all the time. I'd switch it up. I'd start off with a fat brush to give me my broad strokes for, laying the foundational color. And then I would get in with finer and finer detailed brushes to bring some of that detail out. Okay. So now we go to the next one. Okay. Which is number 3, medium. Okay. And it's a little bit larger, but I can probably use this to kind of bring back some of the softness in that sky. All right. Clouds are supposed to be a little bit soft. So I just want to bring out some of that softness in the sky. Okay. Because this is a little bit of a softer brush. Okay. And again, notice that it went from that noodle to, it went from that tight, what was it? Tight short, tight curl, whatever it was, tight. It went back to dab. All right. And the area is now it's selecting from a 1 pixel area. So it's very, very, very controlled where it's pulling that information. All right. And because it's pulling it from a more localized pixel, it's not averaging my colors as much. All right. So it's actually taking the underlying color, being a little bit truer. So I can go around and soften up some of these harder edges if I wanted to. Okay. I'm not going to go around the outside. The outside, if you ever look at paintings, all the detail tends to go towards the subject. So broad, loose strokes on the outside just to kind of give you a sense of color, mood, place. And then as we get closer and closer to our subject, that's where we're going to get finer and finer detail. All right. So we're going to go to our small brush. Okay. And actually here, I'm going to go back to the medium. I want you to notice that medium brush is about 800 pixels. Okay. We hit the small brush and now we notice that it made a drastic jump from 800 to 70 pixels. So this is a really, really small brush. So let me go ahead and zoom in a little bit. Okay. And now as I brush over this, remember it's dabs. Okay. I can start pulling some of this detail. All right. So I might use this to kind of clean up my edges so it's not as chaotic. All right. So I'm going to clean up my edges of the building. All right. I'm going to clean up the mast here, the lightning rod, the weather vane. Okay. Clean up all these edges, clean up all these edges. Okay. All right. That's looking a lot better. And then I'm going to go with the fine brush. The last and final one is my fine brush. Okay. And if we look here, we are now down to 23 pixel size brush. And if I go over the clock, you'll notice that the detail of the clock starts coming in. All right. So this is where I can go in and make the clock look like a clock. All right. Because if we, zoom out, all right. Let me go back to that previous history. Okay. All right. That clock doesn't look very much like a clock, but as soon as I start painting over it with that smaller brush, now it's starting to look like a clock. Okay. And the same thing I'm going to do with the door. Oops, what'd I do? Hold on. There we go. All right. And we're in the dab mode. All right. And now I can go over like the railing. There's some detail in the railing. I'll want to pull that out. Okay. And all I'm doing is I'm just scrubbing up and down, up and down, up and down as I move left and right. Okay. Up and down as I move left and right. Okay. And we're starting to pull some of that detail back. Okay. But because we are using a brush that has texture, all right, we are not going to get a photo coming back. We're using the photo, but we're not reclaiming pixel per pixel that photo. We're getting the influence of that textured brush in with that underlying photo structure and giving us that look of a painting. Okay.
Can you change the pixel on that if we want a little more detail?
Yeah. So at any time I can make
Question.
that,
Not that I'm looking for.
if I make that a bigger brush, okay, that's what that brush does. Okay. Because it's long and skinny, all right, all it's doing is it's rotating. All right. So it's giving this kind of like crazy snowflake effect. Okay. But that's what that brush is doing. All right. So we have to understand what our brush, the structure of the brush is doing. All right. If we want to create any very specific effect. Okay. All right. So what does that mean? All right. So here I went back to that very large brush. Okay. To give us what would be our undercoating, our underlayer. Okay. All right. If I don't want to use this particular brush look, all right, so let's dump this. I'm going to dump it, create a new blank layer. Instead of utilizing this brush with its texture, I just want to use the mechanics. Okay. So if we click on, instead of the brushes panel, we go to the brush settings panel. All right. This now gives us an insight into how that brush was made. These are the inner workings. Okay. So you can see that the brush is 800 pixels wide, or 800 pixels square. Okay. It is utilizing this brush stamp. All right. And we've talked about how to make brushes in the past. So what it's doing is this is a stamp. Okay. So what do I mean by that? If I just select a regular brush, okay, and I go down to, where is it? There it is. Okay. And I stamp, all right, once, all right, that's what that brush looks like. Okay. Let me go ahead and zoom in. So you can see what they've probably did is they photographed an actual brush stroke and utilized that to create this particular brush. And all they have to do to give it variation is rotate the brush. Okay, rotate the brush. Oh, okay. We can squish the brush. All right. We can do all kinds of stuff like the size, alter the size every time. It's going to be different size. Alter the, like I said, alter the direction. Okay. The whole 9 yards. Okay. That's all it's doing. So let me go back. I'm going to select this large brush, okay, which is our art history. All right. If I don't want to use that particular stamp, I just go, I want to keep the mechanics the same. All right. I'm going to go to the brush tip shape, and I'm just going to look for something else that has texture. All right. We want something with texture. Okay. So this one here is 60. Let's bring that up to, what was it, 800? All right, let's just type it in, 800. All right. And now every time, let me zoom out. Okay. It's going to rotate it and it's going to change the shape. All right. Because that brush, the initial brush has, see how it has points? Whenever it rotates, those points kind of look a little bit star-shaped. So maybe this might not be a good enough brush for this technique. All right. So let's see if we can find something that's a little bit more rounded. All right. So here's one that's kind of like a spatter, but you can see the size is 39. So we're going to need to make that larger. So let's go create 800. Okay. And now this one's a little bit nicer. It's a much softer brush. Okay. Has lots of texture to it. All right. So if we zoom in, all right, the inside part, it doesn't have those nice lines that kind of resemble a brush. All right. But there is sufficient texture here, you know, to give us something useful. All right. So this might be a brush that you can use to kind of like soften specific areas. All right. So we can start off with, for example, the default one here that has lots of texture. All right. And if we want to soften that sky, we just go here, get that nice soft round. All right. Let's bring that back up to 800. All right. And now, instead of going at 100% opacity, I might bring it down to about 50% opacity. All right. And that just kind of softens up some of that inner area. Okay. So, what I would suggest is play around with this. Play around with this. One of the things that, if you've ever taken a painting class, either oil painting, acrylic painting, or watercolors, one of the first things a instructor is going to tell you is play around with the different brushes and the kind of marks it makes. And this is exactly what we're doing. We can change our brush shape. All right. We can make our brush selections. We can change it up and see what kind of brushes is this doing. Let's bring that back up to, all right. What kind? Oh, that's kind of nice. All right. The other thing you can do is if you know how to make your own brushes, go ahead and do it. All right. I showed you what that brush looked like, right? The one that comes um, with the texture labs, right? Oops. Control zoom. Let's see if we can get that. See how it has, you see the brush texture, okay? Create something that has a brush texture, all right? And it's not so even. And that's going to give you, oh, look at that. That's going to give you those brush looking dabs, okay? All right. Everybody understand what I mean by changing up the here you go. Change that up. Well, that's going to give us a bit more of a star shaped. Maybe this one. All right, this one smaller. Let's make that 800. 800. Okay, that's not bad. I kind of dig that one. Okay. Here's something that's a little bit too big. 800. Okay, different texture. All right. And then remember, it's the size of your brush that's going to allow you to pull back some of that detail. All right. So here I am just using a smaller brush, scrubbing over the building. Okay. Maybe make it a little bit smaller. All right. Okay. Any questions on how to do this so far? Okay.
Oh, I have fun.
Oh yeah, definitely have fun. I would suggest make it easy on yourself. Download the Texture Labs oil paint brushes, okay? And just stick playing around with those because they are very well designed. You don't need to do anything other than have fun, okay? And then just scrub over the areas. Let's see, we're going to soften up the sky a little bit. There we go. Soften up the edges. See, I'm just looking for those hard edges and I'm just going to soften them up a little bit. Okay, there we go. Smaller detail. Okay, maybe change that up to tight medium. Oh, that did a very quick job of that. And then fine. Go back to dab. Bring out the detail of the windows. All right, maybe let's try loose medium. Let's see what that does. There you go. Okay. Bring it back to dab. Bring out that upper section there. Okay. Let's go back to the medium. I want to clean up the sky a little bit over here, a little over here. There we go. And then just keep working it. Have fun. There we go. As I scrub over. All right. And if you don't want to work like this, just come in a little bit closer. Come a little bit closer. Okay. And then once you're happy, then you can maybe, play around. Let's see, try something a little bit more. Bring that small. Whoa. Let's undo that. Let's not go tight short. Let's go dab. All right. And yeah, we'll just clean up. Let's go to 1. That's 10. Let's go to 1. Okay. Bring some texture into our trees, into our foliage here. There we go. Nice, 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 nice. Okay. Now, that's the art history brush. Now, if we wanted to, we can switch to a regular brush. All right. And there's one that's got a little bit of a texture. Okay. Experiment with brush marks. I'm going to just sample, and I'm just going to dab, dab, dab. All right. I'm not using the history. What I'm actually doing is I'm actually painting on the canvas. Okay. I can go ahead and change it up. All right. Let's see. Maybe try something a little bit. Bring up some of that color in there. Bring some of this color here. Okay. Play around with it. Have fun. All right. Most of the hard work was already done with the art history brush. Okay. The rest is just playing. Okay. Oh, I have twinkle stars. Maybe not. that I don't know. That might be a little bit too much. Whoa. Yeah. Okay. But here's one of the brushes that we did with the for clouds. Okay. Let's see. Maybe I'll use it up here. All right. Bring up some of this. Okay. So have fun. All right. That's the art history brush. Now let's take it one step further. Just because you know me, I like to, complicate things. The final thing that to make this look more like an actual oil painting is not just the strokes that you create on in the image, but also texture, that linen texture that you can use as an overlay. Okay. So where can we come up with some of these overlays? All right. Well, one of the nice things about the internet is that it is full of resources. All right. So we have our art history brush oil paint as a resource. Okay. But we can also go to Google. I typed in linen texture free. All right. We don't want to steal somebody else's work. So most of these will be pulled from some kind of free stock sites. Okay. One of the free stock sites you can go to is Pixabay. All right. There are a few others, Pexels. PX here is another good one. I kind of like this one a lot too. All right. This is a great resource for free assets, free images. Okay. So linen texture free. All right. And you'll find that there are, this one here, for example, comes from Free Pick. Okay. And they also have all different kinds. Shutterstock has some, PNG Tree. There's another one from Free Pick. Okay. Or like I said, you can go to one of these sites and we're just going to type in canvas texture. All right. So we can do canvas texture.
Oh, nothing there. So
Actually, this first one here looks
there
pretty
is.
interesting, right? There it is. All right.
I want something subdued,
Well,
not strong.
all right. So, well, let's go. We're gonna download this. Okay. Oh, we don't want to. Hold on. What did it do? Oh, we don't want to convert it to a. Where is this? Oh, here it is. Download here. Okay. All right. No. All right. Well, I don't want to. Oh, wow. PX here has changed their. Oh, probably because I'm not logged in. That could be. Let me go to Pixabay because I was logged into that one. All right. Let's try canvas texture. Oh, see, it's even auto selecting it there. Okay. So here we go. Some textures. All right. Pixabay is owned by iStock, so you're going to see. Oh, here's that same one. You're going to see a lot of iStock ads in there. Okay. So we go to download and it gives you the option of downloading different sizes. Obviously, we want to go with the largest size. And then we're going to click on download. Okay. And it's going to download. It's going to give you this, who the creator was. So if you want to acknowledge them, you can. All right. Let's go back to our Photoshop. Okay. And what we're going to do is file open. And here we have in my downloads folder, here it is. This is the file that I just downloaded. So I'm going to come over here. I'm going to click and drag it up to the tab for my other one. And using the shift key, I'm going to release. Okay, and that puts it right in the center. Let me zoom out and you can see the orientation is different. So I'm just going to rotate, and then if I hold the shift key, it's going to constrain the rotation. Hit enter to lock that in. The image is larger than my canvas. That's okay. All right. I can either resize it. If I want to, I can just leave it. Okay. And then all we got to do is play around with our blend mode. Now remember, blend modes are designed to work with either dark tones, light tones, or mid tones. All right. So anything that says darken, it's going to utilize the darker pixels, multiply the darker pixels, and less so the lighter pixels. The lighten is going to do the opposite. It's going to keep the light tones and kind of use the darker tones to allow you to see through. And then anything with an overlay, it uses the mid tones and it keeps the highlights and the dark tones in check. All right. And in this case, that soft light looks pretty good. Yeah, so that soft light looks pretty good. Okay. And if we wanted to, right now it kind of has a bit of an influence. So we can, if we wanted to, create a hue saturation layer. Let's clip it. All right. Down here, clip it. And then we're just going to bring the saturation down. It's going to convert it to black and white. And if we wanted to, we can play around with the lightness and brightness of that texture. Okay, so we can kind of play around with how much of that texture we want visible through that lightness and brightness. Okay, all right, and now it looks more like an oil painting. Okay, now this actually looks more like a weave than a canvas, so I'm going to get rid of that, and I'm actually going to, oh, let's get rid of the black and white too. I'm going to bring in something that I've downloaded. Okay, let's go back, and I have all these miscellaneous assets, backgrounds and textures. Here's my texture. Okay, I have a bunch that I've saved over time. I have a paper texture and I have a fabric texture. Let's go ahead and open up the fabric texture, or actually drag it in. Okay, so that looks more like what you would find, as an art canvas. Okay, but you can see it's got a straw colored color to it. All right, so if we change the um, turn it to soft light, okay, it's going to use that color cast as an influence. In this case, it doesn't look too bad, okay, but if I wanted to, I can go ahead and again do a hue saturation, lock it to the underlying, so clip it. See, notice how it removes that kind of like warm cast. Okay, we can play around with the lightness and brightness. Okay, I'm gonna leave it where it was. Okay, all right, and now because I'm using this kind of like soft light, a lot of that brightness is covering up those soft tones. So I can utilize another feature of Photoshop, and that's our blend if. Blend if. So in this case, what I want to do is I want to preserve the darker tones that create that texture and get rid of the lighter tones. So I'm going to go ahead and I can either do this, split it, okay? But you notice that it's going to make that texture, it's really making that texture look crappy, okay? So there's not enough contrast within that fabric texture. But what I could do is I can tell this image that anything that is darker than certain areas, all right, I want to start revealing, and anything that's darker than certain areas, okay, I want to start bringing in as well. Okay, so we can play around with some of that and control how much is coming through. Okay, the other thing we can do is we can play around with the opacity of that texture. So maybe I don't want to use that blend if, I can just utilize the opacity. Okay, so we have a lot of options. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and cancel this for a second. I'm going to bring this back to our normal. All right, now in this case what I have is I've applied a hue saturation to remove the color. The other thing I can do is I can utilize a levels adjustment. Again, we want to pin it to the underlying. All right, we don't want it affecting the entire image, just our texture. Okay, and then if we use the sliders, I can increase the contrast of that texture. Okay, So now if I increase that texture contrast, all right, now it's starting to look more black and white rather than, black, gray, and white. So when I go select my texture and I now change to what was it, soft light, okay, we can see that the texture comes across a little bit more. And then now if I go to blend if and start reducing, oh, where is it, start reducing a little bit, there we go, and then reduce the opacity, we can get more of that subtle whatchamacallit, texture. Okay. All right. But here's the thing. If we look, all right, if I zoom in, all right, there's our texture, right? If we move over here, the texture here isn't as noticeable because the pigment out here, which is controlled by our color, all right, is very light. Okay. The other thing we can do is instead of, all right, I'm just going to make a duplicate of that. Okay. And I'm going to bring it underneath. All right. And change that to normal. Okay. And bring the opacity up. And now we can see that, let's get rid of the blend if. Okay. Now we have that canvas coming through. All right. Let's make another hue saturation level, and maybe I want to reduce, not completely get rid of all the color, but maybe reduce it a little bit. All right. And now what that does is it gives us that texture in those light areas as if we actually painted on that linen. Okay. Obviously, that's not quite an artist's linen, but you get the idea. Okay. You can pick whatever texture you want. If you want to make it look like it's on paper, select a paper texture. Okay. If you want to make it look like it's painted on wood, select the wood texture. The creativity is entirely up to you. All right. Hopefully this gives you some ideas. Any questions? Anything that I can answer or explain a little bit better?
Am I live?
Yeah. Are you live?
Talking.
Okay. Well, here
Long-time listener.
I'll put you. Oh, not. Where's my my zoom in set? There you go. Oh no, that's Bob. Okay, you have to start talking, Brian.
First time caller.
There you go.
When you first started this, the question that came to my mind was her color,
The what color?
watercolor.
Oh, watercolor.
So I was wondering, I imagine that this texture lab may have some watercolor brushes, or could you play when you were making
Well,
textures like that?
let's
Could you
give it
make
a
up watercolor ones.
let's give it a try, shall we? All right. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to the original. Okay. All right, let's load in a paper texture. Paper texture. Here we go. So we're going to take that. I'm just going to go ahead and stretch it out. Hit enter. Oops. There we go. All right. Create a new blank layer. All right. We're going to go to our brushes. I'm going to get the large one. Okay. Now remember, this one here from Texture Labs is has that texture that makes it look like a brush, like an oil brush. Okay. I do have some watercolor brushes. All right, but these watercolor brushes are let's see, where are they? Wet media. Actually, we're gonna keep this one here. We're just gonna change the brush shape. All right. So what I'm gonna do is I'm going to look for. All right. Here's a water brush texture. All right. Here's some water brush textures. You have to kind of know where these are. All right. That's a water brush texture. All right, so let's go and all right, that's not looking very watercolorish, right? So let's see if we
What
can.
made you say that was a watercolor texture?
Yeah, so it's a
Brush?
watercolor texture, but the application's not quite watercolor. All right, so let's try reducing the opacity by 50%. Yeah, it's not really going to give us a watercolor effect, is it? Um, Simply because of the nature of the dabs, I would assume. Um, it's just it's too sporadic. It's not controlled like a true watercolor painting would be. You know, it's sampling way too many of the colors underneath. Watercolor tends to be a little bit more controlled. So I'm not sure if this would be suitable. Right now, if we try reducing the opacity here, maybe, will that work? Yeah, who knows? All right, let's try going down to a smaller brush, maybe not so small. Okay. Uh, is that maybe? All right. So what we can do, all right, let's return that. Okay, we're gonna go and create a new layer on top of that. And instead of reducing the opacity to 60%, we'll reduce it to 80%. And I will go ahead and paint on that. Okay. Let's try loose, medium. Oh no, loose. All right. How about tight, short? Let's see if. Oh, that still doesn't look very good, does it? Uh, loose curl. Oh no. All right. I think we're gonna have to stay with dab, and then just see if we can use that. Let's reduce the opacity instead of oh 60. Yeah, actually keeping it 60. Let's go 50. That's not too bad. Okay. Create a new layer. Let's try that again at 50. And we're going to go with an even smaller brush. Let's change it here and You know what? Let's go to shape dynamics, and the roundness will reduce that to about 50%. There we go. And let's make that smaller. Let's make that really, really small. All right. Okay. And then the spacing, maybe the spacing will bring in a little bit tighter. There we go. All right. And let's bring the opacity up to 60. Okay. Let's go back this one. Let's see. We'll bring that to 40, and I'll just put some more marks down in here. Let's undo that. Let's make my brush bigger and put some marks down in here. Yeah. Okay. It's kind of looking like a watercolor, right?
And you know, as I was watching you do that, it reminded me of there was this technique I learned from a book, I think of 2006, 2005.
Right.
Uh, and what it involved was making two layers, and one of them was you'd blur the layer quite a bit, and then the other one up with just edge lines.
Oh, right.
And
Yeah. Yeah.
and and I'll bet that you could use this in replacing the blur factor, and I'll bet that technique that it uses to make those edge lines has improved dramatically in the last 10, 12 years. That was
Probably.
one of the
Yeah.
problems is that you could kind of tell it was digital the way it was jaggedy.
Right. Right.
That,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
I think for that I'm going to go look back into that because that's what I really like is
Oh,
watercolor
the
and
watercolor. Yeah. Yeah. I'll have to play around and see what I come up with. But like I said, this is more of that oil paint look. All right. But I'm sure, I'm playing around with this. You're forced me to try something new. So what you're seeing here is all experimentation. Okay. Uh, so there's something there. There's something that can probably be done with the art history brush to give it more of a watercolor look. Um, but like anything, you need to kind of play around with it and see what you can, oops, what you can
well,
come
I
up with.
was already went looking for that Texture Labs art history brushes, the one you mentioned,
Yep.
the free download. On their website, they had some sort of, I didn't look into it too far, but 23 art history brush ever textures or techniques for like $6 or
Oh,
something.
yeah,
So
yeah, yeah, yep. Yeah, that's not a bad
consider.
price, if you want to play around with it. Absolutely. You know. So anyway,
Yeah.
that is my introduction to the art history brush. There we go. Let's get rid of some of these stray marks. Okay.
Have a lot of possibilities. You know in terms of making brushes, I just thought of something else.
Mm-hmm.
I have a friend who's quite an artist, and he's been doing this thing he calls skins. And what he does is he paints shapes on glass with acrylic paint.
Okay.
He and then he peels it off and applies it, and ends up with this usually faces or some scenes, and it's quite dramatic. I mean, that would be an interesting brush.
Yeah, you never know. You never know.
Anyway,
So, but yeah, absolutely. Just play around and see what you come up with. All right. The nice thing about this is it's all experimentation. It's all experimentation. That's all it is. So, All right, guys, that's pretty much all I got for you for this evening. Hopefully, you learned something new. Hopefully, you found something that is going to interest you in getting a little bit creative with some of your photos. Okay. And like I said, let me go back to Lightroom. This is what I did with that technique, and you can see it's got the paper texture. I utilized the Texture Lab brushes. Thank you, Texture Labs. And I kept it within, giving it that white edge all the way around, so it makes it kind of look like a painting on paper. You know, this would be more like a gouache painting on paper. Not quite watercolor. It's more gouache, which is a little bit more opaque. Just, who knows? Actually, let me go ahead and open that up. And if I reduce the opacity a little bit, okay, maybe. All right, let's do a duplicate of that. Apply a negative mask. Let me get a regular brush. Go to my, let's go with white as my foreground color. Bring some of that in. Yeah, that doesn't look too bad either. That might look a little bit more watercolor-ish, right?
Yeah.
Doesn't look as oily.
Yeah, exactly. So okay. And don't forget, add your little signature. All right. Don't be afraid to, sign your work. All right, guys. I'm glad you had some fun with this. All right. As always, if I know, Brian, you're always posting stuff on Facebook. I like seeing what you're creating. Bob, if you do any of this stuff, throw it up, share it with others. Okay. Love to see what you guys do with it. All right, guys. Don't forget, tomorrow night is the workshop with Joe McNally. If you're interested, you still have time to sign up. I think there's still seats available. I don't think it's sold out yet. But anyway, we'll see you next month.
Okay.
All righty.
All right, guys. Stay safe.
Thank you for watching Learning Photography with Duck. Brought to you in association with Milford Photo, your local full-service camera store. Located in downtown Milford, Connecticut, Milford Photo offers you a personalized shopping experience. From the latest camera gear to printing and framing services. And, of course, educational workshops to teach you the finer aspects of photography. Don't forget to tell them Duck sent you.